Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is the best Borderlands since Borderlands 2. A lot of times when you see a game that's a knockoff of a bigger franchise, people are hesitant as to whether that standalone game will be good. However, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands manages to be the best modern Borderlands experience there is, and any fans of the Borderlands franchise should definitely check it out. Right away, you'll notice that the graphics of this game are pretty much identical to Borderlands 3. However, the differences in presentation really extend to the design. The game is completely about playing in a Dungeons & Dragons Borderlands universe. So, while everything does look like Borderlands, there are a lot of details across the world, characters, and dialogues that fit nicely into this aesthetic. Even Claptrap himself has been remodeled so that it appears he's running on a Steam engine. Little quirks like this are across the entire game, but perhaps the most notable is of course the integration of the Overworld. At first glance, I was a little hesitant about this method of moving across the map, but after a few hours of playing, this kind of becomes a fun map navigation minigame. While in this mode, you can continue with the main quest, or, at your leisure, explore the world to gain statistical advantages or to grind your character to a higher level. It's worth noting that many of these areas in the overworld are not essential for you to visit. I beat the game at max level and still had 2 areas that I had yet to venture in whatsoever. In fact, it should be said that there is a tremendous amount of content in this game. Not to mention a pretty in-depth endgame to play around in. Another new feature to a Borderlands game is the fact that you get to make your own custom character. This is a welcome sight, as the developer-made characters, while very cool and aesthetically different, did not really have much personality in the other games. And if you're not going to take the effort to make personality for those characters, then why not let me make my own? Additionally, there are now 6 classes to choose from as opposed to the typical Borderlands games where there are only 4. And on top of that, after you reach level 14, you can begin to multi-class. So if you started as a Clawbringer, you can now multi-class into a Spore Warden. One larger thing that other reviewers seem to have taken issue with is the story of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. While the story isn't anything spectacular or original, I feel that it does enough for me to not take issue with it. The story is essentially like your typical Dungeons & Dragons story, and while there are not many twists and turns within the narrative, it does enough to keep me engaged and interested in moving forward and seeing what happens next. Largely, this game is a lot more focused on its comedy, which I feel benefits the story as a whole. The insane amount of pop culture references in this game kept a smile on my face almost the entire time I was playing it. The star power of having Will Arnett, Wanda Sykes, and Andy Samberg within the main cast has a tremendous effect on the entertainment value. I'm very happy that Gearbox was able to pull in big names to play these characters, as many of the characters in Borderlands 3, with a few exceptions, simply did not live up to the witty humor known in this franchise. The gameplay is where this game really shines the most. While yes, it's your typical Borderlands gameplay, there are certain things that are different. Grenades, for example, are now all spells, regardless of whether you are a mage or not. All characters have the ability to cast spells that they find as loot or purchase from a vendor. The great thing about this is while there is sometimes a level requirement on what spell you can do, there is no mana pool in the game. So even if a spell you have is amazingly powerful, all you have to worry about is its cooldown time. While I have tried some of the other classes, my main class was the Spell Shot, whose ability allowed him to wield 2 spells at once. So this was an aspect of the game I got to experiment with constantly. The only legitimate complaint that I have about this game is the amount of time you have to spend inventory managing. I played this game on PS5, so perhaps on PC with a mouse it would have made the process a little less tedious. Regardless, navigating the obscene amount of loot that the game gives becomes a game within the game itself. This was the only aspect of the game that felt dated to me. Before Gearbox makes another Borderlands-esque game, they need to take a long, hard look at the inventory screen and management system, as many times I found myself being pulled out of an enjoyable experience because I had to stop to do inventory management. When all said and done, even with minor issues here and there, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands stands apart as one of the best games in the franchise. This leap in quality feels very akin to the leap from Borderlands 1 to Borderlands 2. If you love looter shooters, this game is for you. We at Golden Glaze Gaming give this a 4 out of 5.
Hey, who's doing necromancy? Skeleton stuff is my brand.